The Armed Forces of the Philippines has released new footage of that fateful June 17 encounter at Ayungin or 2nd Thomas Shoal during what was supposed to be a routine resupply mission to the BRP Sierra Madre.
It showed that Chinese sailors wielded bladed weapons during the altercation, an act described by the Philippine side as barbaric and inhumane. They also used strobe lights on the Philippine Navy while both sides were confronting each other.
The videos also showed Chinese personnel illegally boarding the Philippine vessels and throwing tear gas and rocks at Filipino soldiers who had to defend themselves using their bare hands. Brian Castillo with the big story tonight.
This video taken from the grounded BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal shows how the Chinese Coast Guard surrounded Filipino soldiers aboard the Philippine Navy's rigid hull inflatable boats or ribs. The CCG personnel can be seen forcibly trying to sever the rope connecting the ribs to the BRP Sierra Madre.
Hey, stop! This is our territory! Whoa! Sorry! Whoa!
In the video, you can hear the Filipino soldiers shouting, as well as the loud sirens of the CCG vessels. After a few moments, the Chinese personnel were seen trying to grab a bag from the Navy's rib. China even used strobe lights to try to disrupt those taking a video of what was happening. In another footage, it can be seen that someone from the BRP Sierra Madre splashed water at the Chinese Coast Guard to drive them away from the Philippine outpost. The Chinese side then drew out bladed weapons and pointed them at the Filipino soldiers as if to threaten violence. A few moments later, the CCG used their weapons to stab one of the Navy's rubber boats. That's happening while other Chinese Coast Guard were ramming several anchored ribs of the Philippines. From this angle, from inside one of the ribs, we can see how the Chinese tried to intimidate the Filipinos by pointing a knife at them. The AFP added that the Chinese military aircraft was also circling overhead. In the end, the CCG personnel looted supplies and destroyed the Philippines' rib. The Philippine military described the latest incident as the worst and most intense resupply mission to BRP Sierra Madre.
Historically, this would be the most aggressive posture that they have done. They came close because they were after the ribs. They were after the boats, not the ship. This barbaric, this piracy, they are thieves. This illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions of China does not reflect the intention of their country to be a global power. Other countries have to be wary of this.
A News 5 source says this is the first time the Chinese Coast Guard came this close to the BRP Sierra Madre. The CCG came so close that they could almost climb aboard the Philippine outpost. This is also the first time that China used weapons to intimidate Filipinos and destroy its ribs. China likewise broke a Philippine boat's windshield and communication and navigational equipment.
Etong kabila, walang kinikilalang batas at the tactical level, just as they don't recognize international law by coming into our exclusive economic zone.
Videos released by the AFP clearly show that the Filipino soldiers were unarmed. There were reports that China was able to seize Philippine weapons from the ribs, but the AFP says these weapons were disassembled and were stored in the crates. Navy spokesperson Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad stressed that the Filipinos fought back and defended themselves in a restrained manner.
This was a mob. This was a band of barbarians. Hindi natin ito nabayaan. Anong option natin? Barilin? Hindi po pwede. Sapagkat ang ating instruction, the rules of engagement are very clear. Hindi naman tayo nagpabaya. Pero ang dala natin, bare hands, may mga konti tayong mga gamit sa barko na hindi naman talaga offensive in nature.
One of the videos also showed Seaman First Class Underwater Operator Jeffrey Facundo being tended to by one of his co-sailors. He is the soldier earlier reported to have lost his thumb when China rammed the rib that he was on. It took the AFP 3 days to release these footage, which critics say is not consistent with the goals of its transparency initiative. But according to the AFP, there was a delay because they took the operation's security into consideration.
we are also balancing po the operational security and accuracy para po ma-ensure natin na yung ating mga operasyon are not compromised because of unauthorized disclosure of sensitive po and inaccurate information. Dito po sa delay na to, operational security considerations po ang naging necessity rito, and yung delay po natin in reporting is to safeguard po our strategic and tactical interest.
Maritime security expert Ray Powell believes that China's actions can be considered an armed attack.
The Chinese soldiers were clearly armed. Just because they didn't shoot weapons doesn't mean they weren't armed, and it was certainly an attack. China has no regard for the safety of Philippine personnel. It has no regard for the security of a Philippine vessel. It has no concern over approaching a Philippine sovereign vessel, a Philippine outpost with Philippine military personnel.
With this, Powell says Article 3 of the Mutual Defense Treaty can be activated to jumpstart consultations between the Philippines and the U.S. on actions that can be taken. For now, the Philippine military is still coming up with a plan on how to go about their next resupply mission. But what they're certain of is that China's aggressiveness will not be a reason for them to halt the delivery of goods to Filipino soldiers in Ayungin.